What is up, Frag fam? Corbin here again from Northwest Scent. So a couple of months ago, I was getting a lot of requests to go over my Roja Parfums collection, talk about them, maybe even put them in order and rank them, which I ended up doing. I ranked my entire Roja Parfums collection, and then I decided to follow that up with ranking my entire Creed fragrances collection. And then basically after that, I decided I'm gonna eventually go through the houses that I have in my collection where I own multiple bottles of. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna be continuing that with the house of Tom Ford. And as of current, I think this is the house that I have the most bottles from, which is 15 fragrances. So we're gonna be going over 15 fragrances in my collection, all from Tom Ford, and ranking them from my least favorite to my most favorite here in this video. So if you guys wanna see me do that and find out what my favorite Tom Ford fragrances are, then please stick around. But first, let's roll that intro. Alright guys, welcome back from the intro, and like I already said, I'm going to be undertaking the crazy endeavor of ranking my entire Tom Ford fragrance collection, which again is 15 fragrances. And because I got so many fragrances to cover, I'm going to probably go over them a little bit more briefly than I normally do. I don't want this video to end up being like 30-40 minutes long, but I will still talk about them. I'm just going to try and keep things again a little bit more brief. So without holding off any longer, let's jump into the first fragrance. Okay, so we're about to dive into the first fragrance, but before I do that really quickly, I just want to say I already see it. You know, people are going to probably get a little bit offended when they don't see their favorite Tom Ford here at the top of my list. And guys, these are just my preferences. I enjoy all of these a ton. I would not own these fragrances if I did not like them. This was really hard for me to put these in order, but I had to do it for this video. So again, these are ranked just as of current how my preferences are for the house of Tom Ford. So starting us off here at the number 15 spot, so my current least favorite fragrance that I own from Tom Ford, this is Costa Azzura, which is now in the signature line, as you can see right here. And yes, I still do like this fragrance a ton. Again, it's why I own it. So this was in the private blend. It had a blue bottle, and now they've brought it into this one, which I really do like the aesthetics of this. It looks really nice. I love the juice color here. As far as the fragrance goes, it's kind of a aromatic, aquatic, woody fragrance. So you get driftwood in here. There is seaweed. There's some lavender, and there's actually a ton of notes in this fragrance. I'm not even scratching the surface with those three, but those are the ones that kind of pop out at me. So salty, green, a little bit aquatic, very aromatic actually because of the lavender. I almost equate this to like a fresh, salty, aquatic fragrance mixed with a touch of a barbershop fragrance and then some woody aspects as well. So this one is really nice. A perfect kind of vacation or summer fragrance. It is somewhat light, but it does have some denser qualities at the same time. So I really do appreciate the versatility that this one brings. Definitely worth checking out as well if you guys can, especially now that it's in the signature line. It is a lot more affordable. So that is the first fragrance here on this list, and my current least favorite, again, this is Tom Ford's Costa Azzura. Okay, so moving on to the next fragrance, which is here at the number 14 spot. This one definitely has some similarities to Costa Azzura, although I do ever so slightly prefer it over Costa Azzura. So this one is in the private blend. This is Oud Minerale, and they just moved this to a new line of fragrances. Initially, everybody thought it got discontinued, but now Tom Ford put it in a very slightly different bottle, and it's a lot more affordable now. So if you guys are after this one, you can go buy it at Ulta for a much better price than it was going for. Like I said, this one has a decent amount of similarities to Costa Azzura. This one is a salty, aquatic, woody fragrance, which again, Costa Azzura is, but this one is missing the aromatic side. This has no lavender to it or any kind of like herbs like that. This one is very, very salty and green, and very woody as well. The greenness here is actually coming from the seaweed, which is why it's not really giving off like an herbal aromatic side. And this one is actually so salty, it almost goes in an inky territory. And actually to me, it is quite inky, which is a little bit off-putting for me, but I still do like this one quite a bit. I think it is a very good versatile fragrance. One you can definitely wear in the summer because it has that aquatic, salty side, but again, it is quite dense as well. And this is definitely a signature scent, like worthy fragrance. I've talked to people that this is their favorite Tom Ford. Just for my personal taste, this one is not my absolute favorite, but I still do enjoy it quite a bit. And again, this is here at the number 14 spot. So again, from the private blend, this is Oud Minerale. Okay, so moving on to the number 13 spot, I actually really do enjoy this one a lot. I've talked about it in multiple lists of mine, and I'm honestly surprised how far back in this list it made. Nonetheless, it's still here at the number 13 spot. So this one again is from the private blend. This is Soleil Blanc. And oh my gosh, This is such a relaxing, just vacation style fragrance. In like summary, how this one kind of smells is suntan lotion or sunscreen. It is quite creamy and coconutty, very unisex in my opinion, but there is more depth to it than that. It doesn't smell just like any kind of generic sunscreen, of course. This one does have a bright citrusy side, especially at the opening, but as it like darkens up and sits on your skin longer, it definitely gets richer and creamier. Like I said, you do get coconut in here. There's also white florals and then a tonka bean note, which is bringing a lot of that sweetness, not powdery at all. A very pleasant summer fragrance. Again, this is one that is perfect for like a beach vacation setting, or maybe if you want to smell like you're on a vacation, maybe you want to be transported to the beach, you can wear this one and it'll do that for you. So an awesome fragrance from the house, unfortunately towards the back of my list, but I still do like this one a ton. And again, that is Soleil Blanc. Okay, so the next fragrance we're going to be talking about, which is here at the number 12 spot. This is actually a flanker of the previous fragrance we talked about, and this one is ever so slightly better to me than the previous one, but I really like both of them a ton. So this one is in the Soleil line. This is the newest flanker called Soleil Brulant. And man, what this one's doing differently is this is like a darker, more gourmand take on Soleil Blanc. So this one has resins in it, and there's also some honey in here, and I think maybe beeswax. But you still do get the citruses and the coconut and all that good stuff. So it does still kind of have like this sunscreen, suntan lotion kind of beachy vibe. But again, this one is darker. I would even say sweeter and creamier and just denser in general. Really pleasant though. This is still something you can wear in the summer. I think it's just more of like a playful take on Soleil Blanc and maybe something that's a little bit more nighttime oriented. Really, really solid fragrance. I know this had mixed reviews. Some people thought it was kind of uninspiring and they didn't really like it. I really do enjoy this one a lot. So you should definitely check this one out if you guys can. It is quite expensive, so definitely sample first, but I think it is a really intriguing fragrance. So again, here at the number 12 spot, that was Soleil Brulant. Okay, so moving on to the number 11 spot. This is one of the best just straight up signature scent fragrances from the house, at least in my opinion. I think this is one that while it maybe does cater a little bit more towards an office setting or a slightly formal setting, I think you can easily wear this casual. You can certainly wear this one super dressed up. So that, like I said, this will work in any scenario, a great signature scent. Now this one is in the signature line. This is Grey Vetiver Eau de Parfum. And man, I feel like I'm gonna be saying this for a lot of these fragrances, but it does sadden me how far back I'm putting this here in the list because I really do like this one a lot. Obviously, it's a vetiver fragrance. From the name, gray kind of implies it's a fresher fragrance, and this definitely is. It's a very fresh vetiver coming from some grapefruit and actually a nice dose of that grapefruit. The vetiver here is kind of damp and woody. It's not super earthy and dirty, and you do get a little bit of a spicy component from pimento and nutmeg, and it's even softened up with some orange blossom, just a very small touch of it. So I would say this is the style of vetiver for somebody that maybe doesn't like vetiver or they're not sure if they want to try something super big and bold. This is a very easy to wear and approachable vetiver. So one of my favorites here in the signature line, again, this is Grey Vetiver Eau de Parfum. Okay, so we are cracking into the top 10, and this has honestly amazed me where I put this one here in this list, because at one point this was my favorite Tom Ford fragrance, like hands down, although that was before I tried a bunch of them. Nowadays, I do really like this one a lot, but I do find myself reaching for some other ones a lot more. So this one used to be in the private blend, now it's here in the signature line. This is Ombre Leather. Yeah, guys, this is beautiful. Seriously, it's such an approachable leather fragrance. If I had to point somebody towards a leather that is, in my opinion, very easy to wear and mass appealing, but still a very true and genuine leather, I would probably point them towards this one. You do get a very dominant leather note, but in the case of this one, and different from say Tuscan leather, this one is more like a new car leather or almost like a heavy suede note. It's not really rustic and heavy. You do get some spiciness and sweetness from cardamom, and then a powdery sweetness from some amber. I can definitely get almost a fruity vibe from this. I'm almost getting the smell of like berries. There's no fruity notes in here. That could be coming from the jasmine, I suppose. Nonetheless, like I said, this is a dominant leather fragrance, but it's very approachable at the same time. One of my favorite leather fragrances out there, and unfortunately it has slipped towards the back here on this list, but I still really do like this one a lot. So again, here in the signature line now, this one is Ombre Leather. Okay, so coming in here at the number 9 spot, this is gonna be one of those fragrances that I find extremely underrated. All the fragrances that I previously talked about here on this list, I would say are more popular than this one. I rarely see this get mentioned, and it really is a solid fragrance. That's why it's making it towards the middle of my list right here. So this one is in the private blend. This is Fougere d'Argent. Such a fantastic, modern, and unique Fougere. So this does have lavender, but you also get some Akigala wood in here, and then tonka bean, even with a little bit of mandarin orange and ginger in the opening, bringing a briskness, a citrusy touch, and kind of like a sharp bite. But it really does smooth out as it settles down. The Akigala wood brings kind of a licoricey, balsamic pepperiness with a woody aspect as well. And then the tonka bean brings a very nice creamy sweetness to this fragrance. So like I said, this is a Fougere. It is aromatic. There isn't really much greenness to it, but it still does definitely kind of harken to a Fougere, but it's extremely modern. There's nothing like old school smelling about this. This is a 21st century barbershop fragrance through and through, and it's really fantastic and unique smelling. I've never smelled anything like this. So if you guys are after a Fougere fragrance that is very approachable, modern, and unique, definitely look into Fougere d'Argent. This is one of my favorite Fougeres from the house. So again, here in the private blend, very, very underrated. This is Fougere d'Argent. Okay, so moving on to the number 8 spot. So we're basically halfway through the list now. This is arguably the most popular fragrance from the house. I really do like this stuff a lot, but there are other fragrances from the house that of course I do like better and that I do find myself reaching for more often. So this one is one of the OGs from the private blend. This is Oud Wood. You know, I totally get why this one's popular. It is quite unique. There's nothing else out there that smells like this. It's very easy to wear and approachable and just kind of put together at the same time. This is really a do-it-all style fragrance. I really think you can do basically everything with this except for maybe wear it to the gym. You can definitely pull this off casually, but it does have a formal nature to it as well. As far as the notes go, you guys already know there's oud in here. You get rosewood, some other woody notes, and then a very prominent cardamom note. So it's fresh, it's woody, it's a little bit dark and damp. It does kind of have a sweet, spicy side to it. So it's a little bit sexy, but it is very mature and kind of put together and confident smelling as well. A really awesome fragrance. I wish it performed better, but the scent alone is amazing. That's why it's here in the middle of the list. So an absolute classic from the house, and for good reason. Again, in the private blend line, this is Oud Wood. Okay, so in the top half of the list here at the number 7 spot, this one is an awesome fragrance. Again, I would say this one is quite underrated from the house. Definitely more popular than Fougere d'Argent, but I think this thing smells absolutely fantastic, and I don't think it gets enough talk for the house. So this one is Oud Wood Intense, and I just realized that I put flankers back to back for 2 different instances here in this list with Soleil Blanc and Soleil Brulant back to back, and now Oud Wood Intense and then Oud Wood back to back. So this one, of course, I do prefer it to Oud Wood ever so slightly. That's why it's here at the number 7 spot. What this one is doing differently is honestly everything. This smells nothing like the original Oud Wood. It really should have been its own fragrance. This one does keep the oud, but that's basically it. You get a very dominant castoreum note in here. You get cypress and then angelica as well. So Oud Wood, I would say, is a little bit sharper and fresher and honestly sweeter and spicier. This one is a lot more kind of fluffy smelling. It is still dark and kind of woody, but like I said, it's not as sharp and kind of piercing smelling. I think that's coming from the castoreum, making this one very, very smooth and creamy. Like I said, the angelica brings a very unique kind of spicy balsamic quality to the fragrance. Definitely one worth checking out if you guys can. I know some people are a little bit off-put from this fragrance, but I don't think the castoreum makes this dirty whatsoever. It's not like a heavy animalic fragrance. It's a very smooth, creamy, musky, kind of woody animalic fragrance. So one you should really check out. Again, it's here at the number 7 spot on my list for a reason, because I absolutely love it. So again, that one is Oud Wood Intense. Okay, so moving on to the number 6 spot. This is my favorite citrusy, fresh summer fragrance from the house. Of all the fragrances that come in the blue bottles, this one is my absolute favorite. So this one is in the private blend. This is Neroli Portofino Forte. This one is pretty close to the original, honestly. This is a true flanker where they didn't change around much, but what they did do, I do prefer. This one is a little bit drier and it brings more of a masculine edge to it because of some woody notes and then lavender. So it is a little bit more aromatic and kind of brooding, I guess you could say in a way, but it's really not like a dark, heavy fragrance at all. This one is very light and zesty, but like I'm saying, the woody notes and the lavender do make this one just a little bit more wearable for me. You still get a dominant Neroli note in here. There's also some blood orange, bringing a citrusy touch, but also kind of a sweetness as well. Very, very pleasant. This is basically a classic Italian cologne, but modernized, and I would say made a little bit more masculine, and the performance in this thing is really good as well. I usually get about 6, 7, maybe even 8 hours, which for this style of fragrance is absolutely insane. So I really do like this one a lot. I do find myself wearing it quite a bit here in the hot weather. Again, one of my favorites and my absolute favorite blue bottle fragrance from Tom Ford. So again, this was here at the number 6 spot. This is Neroli Portofino Forte. Okay, so we are cracking into the top 5. So these are the Tom Fords that I really enjoy a lot. Starting the top 5 here off, this one is Tuscan Leather Intense, which I do prefer to the original Tuscan Leather, which I've never owned that one. I do like it, but once I tried the Intense version, this is the only one I felt that I needed, and this one is quite similar. It is very powerful, just like the original Tuscan Leather. It has the same raspberry note, bringing a nice fruity quality to it, a little bit kind of tart. The leather is extremely dominant here. What this one is doing is it's added an animal notes, which it's just saying animal notes. They're not saying a specific animal note, but there is kind of more of a muskiness to this one, if that makes sense. It's not, I would say, dirtier, but it's just a little bit more musky in kind of an animalic way, but not an off-putting way. This thing is absolutely beast mode. This stuff screams off my skin. Very loud, very long lasting. A little bit smoother than the original, which is part of the reason why I do like this one better, even though it is just as loud and it does have those animal notes. I think the muskiness is a little bit creamy here, and it's kind of rounding off those sharp edges that the original has. Very, very awesome fragrance. One of the best straight up leather fragrances that I've ever tried. So again, here at the number 5 spot, one of my absolute favorite private blends, and I think this one is discontinued, sadly. This is Tuscan Leather Intense. Okay, so moving on here to the number 4 spot, we have another sadly discontinued fragrance, which it seems that Tom Ford discontinues some of his best fragrances. I do not know why he does that. As far as this one goes, this is one of the sexiest Tom Ford fragrances that I've ever smelled. So this is Plum Japonais. Man, this smells so good. If you guys have not had the opportunity to try this stuff, you need to. Seriously, one of the best private blends ever created. This is spicy, it's fruity, it is sweet, it's boozy, it's got some woodiness to it, it's creamy, it's seductive. This is just so many good adjectives can be applied to this fragrance. You do get cinnamon in here. Of course, you get plum. There is a liquor note. To me, it kind of comes across like brandy because it is very, very sweet. There is also an oud note in here, but kind of like with many Tom Ford fragrances, when he utilizes oud, I think it is a synthetic oud because it's not dirty at all. It is a very clean, kind of dark, earthy, woody oud note. Very pleasant in this fragrance though. You get vanilla in here and amber as well. You get a bunch of other notes. This thing is very sexy, like I already said. One of the best private blends ever created in my opinion. Sadly discontinued. Again, if you guys can get a sample of this stuff, you really need to. I can't imagine many people disliking this one at all. So again, here at the number 4 spot, one of my absolute favorites. This is Plum Japonais. Okay, so here at the number 3 spot, this is one of my favorite tobacco fragrances that I've ever smelled, hands down. So you guys probably already know which fragrance I'm gonna be talking about. This is, again, in the private blend. This is Tobacco Oud Intense. This stuff is so, so good. I have a backup bottle of this stuff because I never want to run out. You do get tobacco in here. You get oud, there's castoreum, and then amber. And there's not many changes with this one from the original. I think the main change is that castoreum, which again, similar to Oud Wood Intense, it's bringing kind of a creamy, lightly sweet muskiness that kind of rounds things out, makes it a little bit less harsh. The tobacco here is like a dried leaf tobacco, but it's very authentic, and there's a big emphasis on the dried leaf. This is a very kind of dry tobacco fragrance. The oud here, kind of dark and woody. Again, not very oudy in the true sense. And then you do get a nice sweet touch from the amber as well. So this is an absolute gem. I'm really sad they discontinued this one. Again, that's why I have a backup bottle, because I never want to run out of this stuff. And again, that is the one here at the number 3 spot, which again, this is Tobacco Oud Intense. Okay, so we are on to the last 2, and these last 2 were the hardest ones for me to put in order because I am so back and forth. It took me a while to decide which one I had to put at the number 1 spot. On any given day, the order of these could switch, but as of current, this is how I'm feeling. So here at the number 2 spot, this one is effing fabulous, which as you guys can see, if you were paying attention, this is the only private blend I have in the 100 ml size, and that's because this is my favorite private blend fragrance. This is a leather fragrance, but it's a very soft, suede-like leather. It is supported by clary sage, lavender, almond. tonka bean, and then vanilla. Now to me, you can kind of get this leathery touch, but this is almost like a gourmand leather to my nose. I compare this to the smell of fruit gummies, which I've never seen anybody else make that comparison. I think that really is just me, but that's really what my brain goes to when I'm smelling this stuff. It smells like fruit gummies to me. Of course, much darker and creamier and more powdery, but I'm just kind of getting like this gummy vibe from it, as weird as that sounds. Again, this one is aromatic from the clary sage and lavender. It is creamy and sweet coming from the almond, the tonka bean, and then the vanilla. And then there is kind of this suede-like creamy base layer from the leather notes in here. A fantastic fragrance. Honestly, I love this one. I know some people rag on it because of the name and then the increased price that this one brings, but I do enjoy this one so much. This was my favorite Tom Ford fragrance for a long time until we get to the #1 spot, which we are about to talk about. So again, here at the #2 spot, this one is effing fabulous. Okay, so we are at the #1 spot. So as of current, if I had to only keep one Tom Ford, if I had to throw away all these fragrances except for one, this is the one that I'm keeping. So this is in the signature line right here. This is Beau de Jour. My absolute, oh my gosh, favorite Tom Ford fragrance right now, and arguably my favorite Fougere fragrance in general, which makes this one of my favorite fragrances in my collection, period. This is the perfect Fougere fragrance in my opinion. You get a very dominant lavender extract note in here, so it is a very realistic lavender. It literally smells like you're sniffing a lavender flower. You get some herbal spiciness from rosemary, basil, and then mint, with a little bit of geranium, and there's a nice sweetness in the base from some amber, and this does kind of have a green mossiness from the oak moss in this fragrance as well. So again, this is the perfect Fougere in my opinion. It's aromatic, it's a little bit sweet, but it's very herbal and spicy and green. I just can't say anything bad about this fragrance in general. You guys need to check this one out if you're into Fougere fragrances, stuff that does kind of harken back to a more classic style, but is still very modern at the same time. This is one of the most well put together fragrances that I've ever smelled. This smells like class. This smells like you're dressed up, you're going out, and you're doing big important stuff. So obviously my favorite one, I can't hype this thing up enough. Again, here at the #1 spot, this is Beau de Jour. Well, there you guys go. That was me ranking my entire Tom Ford fragrance collection from my least favorite to my most favorite, which again, this was a huge endeavor. And honestly, I felt like Sebastian from Smelling Great Fragrances making a 15, 20, 25 fragrance list. This thing took a long time to film, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys did, I would really appreciate dropping a like just to show your support. And then that way more people can see my videos on YouTube. Additionally, if you want to write a comment, maybe just let me know your thoughts as well as some new video ideas or topics, that would be great too. And since you're down there doing all that stuff, if you have not already, if you could hit the subscribe button and then the bell notification, that would be amazing. That way you stay up to date on new videos whenever they get released going forward. But with all that out of the way, that's all I really have for you guys today. So I hope you have a good one. Stay healthy, stay wealthy, and smell great.